These particular qualities in the Baha'i writings, they're called gems of inestimable value. These are gems, these are shining rubies, sapphires, diamonds, which make us wealthy. They give us the wealth of the spirit. And we acquire them by developing our belief that God can help us. They're developing when we realize that without the help of God, we cannot develop these things in the way in which they should be developed. You know, a seed can only grow with sunlight. You take the sunlight away, how is the seed going to grow? The seed, with all this wonderful potential, if you have a little acorn, for instance, how is it going to grow into a fantastic, strong oak tree if it doesn't have the sunshine shining upon it all the time? It will not grow. It will just rot in the ground and be perish, and give it its non-development, its undevelopment will be an obstacle to the progress of the human race. It will contribute just wrong things to the human race. So we need the sunshine of our Maker, the sunshine of that emanates from our Maker to enable us to grow. And if we don't grow, then we're stagnating all the time. So here we are on this earth now, we are in this physical world, we are developing those wonderful things which are necessary for our happiness, not just in this life, but also in the next life. An undeveloped soul in the next life is somebody who is not focused on developing these spiritual qualities, these gems of inestimable value. And you know, in the Baha'i writings, it says, Baha'u'llah says that all the prophets of God, all the holy messengers of God, as we mentioned some of them before, Buddha, Christ, Muhammad, Zoroaster is one we hardly know about in the West here, Abraham, wonderful soul that brought us the teachings of the oneness of God, and Baha'u'llah for us in this day and age, others in the future, manifestations of God we call them. These are bringing two types of teachings to us, and to help us understand that we are here for a purpose. And the first type of teaching they give us is to instruct us to develop all those things which are necessary for going into the next world in a pure condition, to develop all those wonderful qualities that we've just been speaking about, because that's where our heaven is. When we develop those qualities and we put them into action in this world and in the next, in relation to other people, in relation to material and spiritual progress, this is the source of our true happiness. Human happiness, it says, Abdul Baha says, the son of Baha'u'llah, a wonderful soul. Hope you really get to study the life of Baha'u'llah and Abdul Baha. It will give you great insights and solace and understandings, and empower you, in actual fact, to enable you to progress spiritually. And he said, human happiness is founded on spiritual behavior. Human happiness is founded on spiritual behavior. And how come we can be happy if we don't behave in a spiritual way? You could put it the other way around. You could say that unhappiness is founded on not acting spiritually. So we can reflect on that for a little bit. Unhappiness is because we are not acting in a spiritual way. And then we're left with the question then, well, how do we act in a spiritual way? What is spiritual? Is spiritual just going to a church, a mosque, or a synagogue, or is it just saying traditional rite, going through traditional rites and ceremonies and so on? No, that's not being spiritual at all. Spiritual behavior is following the teachings of the great messengers of God. And Baha'u'llah says the purpose of the coming of all the great messengers of God is to educate us, so as at the hour of our death, we will ascend with the utmost purity, sanctity, and detachment to the throne of the Most High. In other words, the throne of the Most High, as far as I can make out, means that we are coming closer to God. And that means, because we spoke earlier about God being an essence, and it's impossible to really come into the presence of the essence of God and know anything about it. It's completely withheld from us that because we have finite minds, and our souls are finite as well. They're circumscribed. They're not absolute like God is absolute. They're contingent being. We are contingent beings dependent upon God. So in reality, as we're coming closer to God, we're coming closer to, Baha'u'llah says, the manifestations of God. They are as God to us. They are like God to us. So coming into the presence of God, and they all speak about that, really means to come into the presence of the manifestations of God. And it may be, it's just a thought, that when these souls were having near-death experiences, perhaps this being of light was a manifestation of God, one of a number of manifestations of God maybe, and they felt that power that emanated from them in such a way that they were completely overwhelmed by that love. Surely the people that came into the presence of, when you read the history of Christ, and read the history of Muhammad, Baha'u'llah and others, souls that had eyes to see and ears to hear, that were receptive, that were able, they had some form of spiritual receptor inside themselves that was able to respond to the manifestation of their particular age, their particular messenger. They were so entranced by the love that they felt from these great beings that they were willing to give their lives for it. And in actual fact, many of them did in the early days. They died martyrs for their particular faith. The Christian martyrs, the Muslim martyrs, the martyrs at the time of Baha'u'llah and so on. And history seems to repeat itself.